Walk into any major city on Earth right now. New York, London, Tokyo, Lagos, Dubai. It doesn't matter which one. Look down at the crowd moving around you, and you'll see it again and again and again. A simple curved line. No words, no explanation needed. Just a checkmark-shaped symbol that somehow every single person on the planet recognizes instantly. The Nike Swoosh. And when you stop to really think about that, it's almost strange, because Nike doesn't make something people need to survive. It doesn't power your phone. It doesn't feed your family. It doesn't keep you warm in ways that matter for survival. It makes shoes. Yet a company that began with one man selling footwear from the trunk of his car now generates tens of billions of dollars every single year. It is worn by presidents and prisoners, by champions and people who haven't exercised in years, by children who can't afford lunch but saved up for the shoes. So the real question isn't how Nike got big. The real question is, why do people feel something when they put on a pair? Because that feeling, that specific, hard-to-explain feeling, is worth more than every shoe Nike has ever manufactured. This is the story of how Nike stopped selling footwear and started selling the human desire to be greater than you are. Chapter 1. The Beginning. A man, a car boot, and an idea. 1964. Eugene, Oregon. A former track athlete named Phil Knight and his old university coach Bill Bowerman had a simple, honest frustration. The running shoes available to American athletes weren't good enough. They were expensive. They were average. And for people who took performance seriously, they were a problem. Knight had a theory. Japan was producing high-quality athletic shoes at a fraction of the cost of European alternatives. If someone could bring them to America and sell them directly to athletes, there was a real business there. So he did exactly that. No office, no investors, no marketing budget, just Knight, his car, and boxes of shoes in the boot. He drove to track meets, set up a table on the side of the field, and sold shoes to athletes who actually needed better ones. The company was called Blue Ribbon Sports. Nobody had heard of it. Nobody would have predicted what it was about to become, because Phil Knight wasn't just trying to sell shoes. Looking back now, he was quietly laying the foundation for one of the most psychologically sophisticated brands ever built. He just didn't know it yet. Chapter 2. The Swoosh, $35 that changed everything. 1971. Nike needed a logo. Phil Knight approached a graphic design student named Carolyn Davidson, someone he'd met at Portland State University. He asked her to create something that conveyed movement. She presented several options. Knight wasn't completely sold on any of them, but there was one, a curved, sweeping check mark. That felt right enough. He approved it. Carolyn Davidson was paid $35. $35 for what is now one of the most recognizable and financially valuable visual symbols in human history. But here's the thing worth understanding. The swoosh didn't become valuable because it was a beautiful design. It became valuable because of everything Nike attached to it over the following decades. Every championship moment, every record broken, every athlete bleeding and pushing and refusing to quit while wearing that symbol. The human brain is wired to connect symbols to feelings, and Nike spent 50 years making sure that every time someone saw that curved line, they felt something. Victory, speed, ambition, the best version of themselves. The logo didn't sell shoes. The logo sold a feeling. And feelings, as it turns out, are worth billions. Chapter 3. Michael Jordan. The deal that rewrote the rules of marketing, 1984. Nike was doing well, but it wasn't dominant. Not yet. And then someone in the boardroom made a decision that would change the company, and honestly, the entire concept of sports marketing, forever. They signed a 21-year-old rookie basketball player named Michael Jordan. Now, understand the context. Jordan was talented, clearly talented, but he wasn't yet the global icon we know today. He hadn't won championships. He wasn't a household name outside of basketball circles. Nike took a calculated risk, but they didn't just sign him to wear their shoes. They built an entire world around him. Air Jordan, its own logo, its own colorways, its own identity within Nike's identity, and the results were genuinely staggering. In the first year alone, Air Jordan generated revenues that completely exceeded what Nike had projected. But here's the psychological insight that made it genius. The people buying Air Jordans weren't basketball players. Most of them had never played competitive basketball in their lives. They were buying what Jordan represented: excellence, confidence, the idea that if you wore what he wore, some part of that greatness might transfer. It sounds almost irrational when you say it out loud, but that's exactly why it worked. Nike didn't sell shoes. Nike sold the dream of becoming someone extraordinary, and an entire generation lined up to buy it. Chapter 4. Selling Identity. Who do you want to be? Pay attention the next time you watch a Nike advertisement. Really watch it. Notice what they don't talk about. They don't mention the rubber compound in the sole. They don't explain the stitching technology. They don't compare their manufacturing process to competitors. Instead, you see a runner alone on a road at 5 a.m. in the rain. You see an athlete in a gym, exhausted, choosing to do one more rep. You see someone failing, getting up, failing again, getting up again. Nike understood something about human psychology that most companies completely miss. People don't make purchases with logic. They make purchases with emotion, and then use logic to justify the decision afterward. Nobody needs a $180 pair of running shoes to get fit, but they feel like those shoes represent a commitment to the version of themselves they want to become. The person who wakes up early, the person who pushes through discomfort, the person who doesn't quit. Nike sells that person back to you, packaged in a shoebox. And that is a far more sophisticated product than anything made of rubber and fabric. Chapter 5. Just do it. 3 words worth more than most companies. 1988. Nike's advertising agency presents a new campaign. 3 words. Just do it. Simple. Almost aggressively simple. No product description, no price point, no feature list. Just an instruction, a challenge, an invitation. And it landed like nothing Nike had done before. Because Just Do It wasn't about sport. It was about every human being who has ever stood at the edge of something difficult and hesitated. Every person who wanted to start something and kept waiting for the right moment. Every person who knew what they needed to do and needed someone to simply tell them to do it. The campaign connected Nike to something universal, not running, not basketball, not athletic performance, courage. And courage is one of the most marketable things in the world because everyone wants more of it, and nobody ever feels like they have enough. Decades later, those 3 words still carry weight. That's not a slogan. That's a philosophy that a shoe company convinced the world belonged to them. Chapter 6, Scarcity, making you want what you can't have. Here's where Nike's psychology becomes genuinely fascinating. At some point, the company realized something counterintuitive. Making fewer shoes could be more powerful than making more. So they began releasing limited editions, small quantities, specific dates, no restocks. And the response was unlike anything the retail world had seen. People camping outside stores the night before release, websites crashing within seconds of a drop going live, sneakers selling out in minutes, and appearing on resale platforms hours later for 3 times the price. Why? Because of a deeply wired human instinct that psychologists call the scarcity effect. When we believe something is rare, our brains automatically assign it higher value. It doesn't matter whether the shoe is functionally better than one sitting on a shelf with hundreds of pairs. The fact that you can't easily have it makes you want it more. Nike didn't just understand this principle. They built an entire cultural calendar around it. Sneaker drops became events. Communities formed around them. Media covered them. Shoes stopped being consumer products. They became cultural moments. Chapter 7, the sneaker economy, the shoe that became an asset. And then something happened that even Nike probably didn't fully anticipate. People started treating sneakers like investments. Certain limited releases, bought at retail for $150, $180, $220, began appearing on resale markets for $500, $1,000, sometimes more. Collectors started cataloging them, storing them unworn in climate-controlled conditions, tracking their value the way others track stocks. Entire businesses were built around buying Nike releases and flipping them for profit. A global resale market, now worth billions of dollars annually, exists almost entirely because of the demand Nike engineered. Think about what that means. Nike created a product category where the shoes appreciate in value, where buying a pair is an investment decision, where the act of purchasing carries the excitement of getting in early on something scarce and potentially valuable. They didn't just change how people buy shoes, they changed what buying shoes means. Chapter 8, The Global Machine. Bigger than sport, bigger than fashion, just everywhere. Today, Nike exists in a category that very few brands ever reach. It's not just a sportswear company, it's not just a fashion brand, it's a cultural institution. You'll find it on the feet of the world's greatest athletes and on the feet of people who've never played a sport in their life. In professional stadiums and on high fashion runways, in hip-hop videos and Olympic ceremonies, in boardrooms and on basketball courts in Lagos and London and Los Angeles. And that presence, that sheer relentless visibility, is not accidental. Nike understood something fundamental about how trust works. The more familiar something becomes, the more we trust it. The more we trust it, the more we buy it. The more we buy it, the more visible it becomes. It's a machine that feeds itself. And it was built not on superior technology or cheaper prices, but on 50 years of understanding exactly how human beings think, feel, and decide. Closing. So how did Nike turn shoes into a billion-dollar psychological machine? Not by making the best shoe, not by making the cheapest shoe, by making you feel something about the shoe, by attaching a curved logo to the idea of winning, by building a young basketball player into a symbol of human excellence, by writing 3 words that somehow captured every person's desire to stop hesitating and start becoming, by making certain shoes so rare that owning them felt like belonging to something exclusive, and by understanding, better than almost any company in history, that people don't buy products. They buy who they want to be. The swoosh became a symbol. Air Jordan became a dream. Just Do It became a mindset that outlived every campaign that carried it. And together, they transformed a man selling shoes from a car boot in Oregon into one of the most psychologically powerful brands the world has ever seen. Nike never really sold shoes. It sold the feeling of becoming someone greater than you were yesterday. And that may be the most valuable thing any company has ever figured out how to sell. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Would you buy Nike for the shoes or for what the brand represents? Thanks for watching.